Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Monday and it's August the 14th, 2023. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets that you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from the city of Fayetteville here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, Fort Liberty, previously known as Fort Bragg, a soldier gets 76 years in jail, accomplice gets 30 years. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Well, just in case you reside outside of the state of North Carolina, you might be a little bit confused with the name Fort Liberty. I want to remind you that we're speaking about the home of the Airbornes, the base frequently known throughout our lifetime as Fort Bragg. Now, during the month of June, this past June, Fort Bragg was one of several bases to experience a name change. And during that month, Fort Bragg became Fort Liberty. I'm not going to address why the changes took place. That's not my story for today. But what I want to remind you is that previously known as Fort Bragg, it's now known as Fort Liberty. This story was breaking news last Thursday, and the details are pretty darn disturbing. I had to stop whatever was on my agenda and refocus my attention to this story because I knew this is something I wanted to discuss because it deals with sex crimes against children. A paratrooper and his accomplice being sent to jail for what I would describe as being the rest of their lives for disturbing sex crimes. And I don't believe this story has gotten the attention it deserves, so let's talk about it here. So let me begin by introducing to you the two people who are the focus of our discussion today. First, was one military and one civilian. Now, at the time of his arrest, Army Master Sergeant Joshua Glardon was a former first sergeant with the 4th Psychological Operations Group at Fort Bragg. Well, you know, Fort Bragg became Fort Liberty, but at that time it was still Fort Bragg. And he lived off base in Fayetteville, and a warrant had been issued for his arrest, alleging more than a dozen charges relating to child sexual exploitation here in Cumberland County. So from the very beginning, the incidents or the crimes he was accused of committing, they were believed to have occurred outside of the military installation. One report indicated that at the time of his arrest, he was serving as an ROTC instructor at Appalachian State University, which is in Boone here in North Carolina. And the woman pictured here happened to be his accomplice, 50-year-old Amy Banks Huddleston, a civilian. Now, I looked at several local sources, and none of them gave any clue as to the relationship between these two, but one military news source stated that she was his mistress, and the child depicted in the homemade video was her own daughter. Unbelievable. And I have to say allegedly, but this is verbatim from one of our national military-related news sources. Nonetheless, it's clear these two were accomplices in some of the most despicable acts of sexual abuse. And she was not just an observer, she was an active participant, and that will become very clear in just a few minutes. And this investigation all got started in response to a notice police received from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now, that organization had received a few cyber tips from another agency, a messaging app, and the administrator of that messaging app had notified the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that one of its users had uploaded child sexual abuse material on multiple days. So you see, these organizations they're keeping an eye out there. They don't catch them all. They catch a very small portion, but they are keeping their eye out for activities such as this. And when they find something suspicious, they pass it along to the authorities. So the Cumberland County Police and some other agencies all got involved. And the first thing they did was to try to connect the IP address with the location from where the child sex images were uploaded. They said most of the images appeared to be homemade, and this search allowed them to determine a person of interest. And that person was active duty Master Sergeant Joshua Glardo. Shocking. And the next step was to obtain a search warrant that allowed them to seize all of his electronic devices and search through them for evidence. And police say they found thousands of images of child sex abuse material on his devices, including his phone. And when police went through his chat, of course, they checked his online communication. They saw communication that he had with a woman, and police identified her as Amy Huddleston, pictured here. And they were able to identify the child that was the victim of abuse in the homemade image. They learned that Amy had access to that child, and so they went ahead and they got a warrant for Huddleston, that they wanted to check her electronic devices and also to check her home to search for more evidence. They also brought her in for an interview, and what they found out was just shocking. And during her interview with police, Amy Huddleston confessed to allowing Glardo to sexually assault the child. She also admitted she would take images and videos of the child, including videos of her sexually abusing the child, and she would then send those videos and images to Glardo. So she allowed him to assault, to violate this child. We don't know how old the child was, but she allowed him to violate the child. Then she did it herself, and then she would send the information on to this paratrooper. Now, I need to mention it was not just one child involved in the videos and the still images. So in addition to Amy's child, there were others, but we're focusing specifically on the homemade images here that involved Amy's daughter. And once he had the images in his possessions, whether they were sent by Amy or he took him himself, he would then upload the images to specific sites over the internet, and in communication, he would encourage others to share images as well. And investigators say when it pertains to Amy's child, they found nearly 50 conversations where Glardo shared the victim's photo and encouraged others to fantasize about brutally raping the child. Disgusting. Now, Glardo, he was indicted on 15 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor and 1 count of first-degree statutory sex offense, of that child that he had easy access to with Amy. Now, he was given a bond of $1.1 million. Now, Amy, she was charged with statutory sex offense as well as first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor, but her arrest came later on. I did not see whether or not she had received a bond, but it doesn't mean that she didn't get it. But they both face justice for their transgressions. And apparently, from some of the readings and the news sources that I found, apparently Glendon had a history of bad behavior and previously sexual harassment charges. So after his arrest in Fayetteville, the military began taking a second look at some of his past allegations of sexual misconduct. It was reported that he had faced multiple investigations of sexual harassment and questionable leadership. And I read some of the sexual harassment charges and I just shook my head in disgust because I said the military apparently just gave him a slap on the hand and sent him away to continue his bad behavior. Now, the military could have probably sent him to jail, but instead they gave him a letter of reprimand and it was business as usual. It took the civilian authorities with the assistance of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to put an end to his despicable behavior. And Amy was the first to receive justice during the first week of June this year. Now, this case was prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina, and they don't play. In fact, they did not play with her behind. She received the maximal penalty available for her despicable acts of making porn and allowing someone to violate her own child while making porn. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, and if she's lucky to be able to complete her time and get out, she'll be subjected to a lifetime of supervision. Now, she was also ordered to pay $10,000 in restitution to the victim. And my response is, What the hell? That's no money. $10,000? Why even bother to give her an order for restitution to the victim of $10,000? I was just shocked. But I digress for a second, so let's get back and complete our story. And while Amy's saga was playing itself out in the courts, Joshua Glendon, the former paratrooper, and I say former because by that time he had already been kicked out of the military, he eventually pled guilty to the receipt, and the possession of child pornography. That was just a few weeks ago, and he got exactly what he deserved. Now, I'd like to say they threw the book at him, but that would be an understatement. They threw the book, the paper, the whole damn desk at him. That was a sentence that brought me great joy. It was a victory in essence for all the children he had ever violated in his entire life. Now, this deserved the best catcall and all the bells and whistles available out there. Believe me when I say it was a victory, and in my opinion, it was justice being served. So last week we learned that the brave and courageous judge in the Cumberland County Courthouse sentenced this predator, Joshua Glendon, to 76 years in prison. Yes, you heard me. He got 76 years. This man, who used to be admired as a special operations non-commissioned officer, who was once the pride and joy of the United States Army, they gave him exactly what he deserved, 76 years in prison, and that essentially means he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. So now Glendon and his alleged mistress, his partner in crime, got exactly what they deserved. So the two predators are now off the streets for good. I hope they don't let Amy out of jail for good behavior. Let her stay right in there and serve every bit of those 30 years. She deserves it. And this is just a small victory for victims of child sexual violence. And I'm also convinced that there are many more Joshua Glandons and A.B. Huddlestons out there, right out there in our very own community. And when they're caught, I sincerely hope another judge has the courage to give them a similar type of sentence. So for now, 2 down, but many more to go. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like that one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.